Welcome to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney, and welcome to the intersection of Deer Park Road and Silverado Trail in Napa County. And this point defines the beginning of this road to nowhere. Tucked behind every Bay Area highway are the smaller roads, the routes that may not get you from point A to B as quickly, but you'll find awesome day trip adventures. Now, we started doing these road to nowhere shows because when you look at Bay Area maps, there's all this unknown land between two more well-known locales. Today, I decided to explore a huge swath between St. Helena and somewhere I have never been to before, Lake Berryessa. And boy, did we find some amazing things. We'll visit one of the oldest garages in California. It's been here since 1915, but one of its biggest attractions is a real snake pit. Have you ever even heard of the Berryesque town of Pope Valley? All the more reason to explore it. We'll hit this bizarre country bar where the food that's put them on the map is fresh from the fryer egg rolls. And we'll meet a man who magically links wine, horses, and the Flintstones. Plenty to see on our way to the ultimate destination, the waters of Lake Berryessa, a community that has a terrific restaurant, interesting history, and locals who dream of a much-needed rebirth. But this road to nowhere doesn't begin here. We begin here in St. Helena at the Napa Valley Olive Oil Manufacturing Company. There is history here. Come on. I'm stocking up on snacks at the Napa Valley Olive Oil Manufacturing Company, once a real olive oil factory, today a fantastic Italian grocery.
The place has been here since 1880 as a barn, and about 1931 it got converted to the olive oil, and it just really has never changed. The olive oil, when we started in 31, we actually did it in this building. You see that big milling stone? Yeah, that milling stone would go around on this old belt drive.
Up here.
Yeah, with that gear.
These days, the oil is processed in the Sacramento Valley, but they still bottle it here and sell it, of course, along with all kinds of savory goodies. Perfect for wine country picnics. All right, now that we've filled up on oil, we're really ready for the road to nowhere. And speaking of needing oil, let's hop in the MG. And we're off. From the Silverado Trail, we turn right onto Deer Park Road and climb up and out of Napa Valley. Not a bad view. Next, we zoomed through the little hamlet of Angwin, most famous by virtue of the fact that it was founded by Seventh-day Adventists. No wonder for a long time most of the things here were closed on Saturday. Angwin also became famous because of what happened here on a Sunday afternoon in 1969, when a student at Pacific Union College left for an innocent picnic at Lake Berryessa and wound up becoming one of the victims of the most notorious serial killer in Northern California history. More on that later. For now, let's hit the road. We zoomed on into Pope Valley. Talk about tiny towns. Just a couple of buildings here, including the quintessential small-town garage. We warned you that we were coming to this historic spot,
Yeah.
which really is a historic spot, this garage.
Yeah, it
has
is.
been in business for how long?
The garage was built in 1915.
This garage has operated on cars pretty much ever since there were cars to operate on around
That's
here.
right. That's why it's here. This steep hill here, when the Model Ts came out in the early teens, they'd come down this mountain, lose their brakes, and that's the existence of this shop.
It gets hot out here too, I would assume.
Yeah. When the rattlesnakes carry canteens, you know it's pretty hot.
In addition to the sign showing that you're the proprietor here, there's also a sign on the back of that truck. What is that? You're running for Napa County Supervisor.
Yeah.
You're branching out.
Well,
You want to have a little say in local affairs?
well, yeah. I think I could provide well for the county.
Do you do anything for fun at night, or what?
Well, watch the vineyards grow, and
Okay, so you got to make your own entertainment.
you do. Right.
I understand you have something entertaining in the back.
Yeah, we do.
Can you take a look?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Rattlesnakes in a tub. I thought I worked in a snake pit.
Yeah, there's probably 10 in there now.
Have you ever almost gotten bit?
Oh yeah.
You have?
Yeah, every one of us here have. Yeah.
Really? Okay, but it's
But
worth
you know, it's
worth the risk.
I don't know if it's worth the risk. It's just something that we inherited, and for the hundreds of people that come here yearly to see these, it's kind of it'd be disheartening on one hand to turn families after families away every day, because literally every day people come to see these. You know, so we kind of got to keep the tradition alive.
Well, I can't say, Jeff, that I've ever been at an auto garage with a bathtub full of rattlesnakes.
And that's probably another reason why we keep it.
We were on our way out of town when a man stopped us and asked us if we wanted to take a peek at Pope Valley history. This dusty old building, a structure that seems on the brink of collapse, is stuffed with weird wonders.
This building was built in 1875.
And what was it used for originally?
Well, it was built as a store and a saloon and a hotel. You could buy staples, barbed wire, food, whatever you needed.
Apparently a lot of beer, too.
Oh, well, there's a picture in there of a bulldog. The man in there one night had a few drinks and he pulled out his old .45 and he says, "I'll shoot that dog between the eyes," and he did. And we're really lucky nobody was standing on the other side of the wall.
That the hotel is historical is certain, its future less so. Will it be revived or torn down? Brad is not hopeful.
In our county, they don't care about historic. If it's a winery, it would be done. Anything else, no.
Wow.
And the people that run the county are not into history. They have nothing to do with history, so.
That's got to be pretty tough for you.
It's pretty sad.
Now, we are not done with Pope Valley yet. When Eye on the Bay continues on the road to nowhere, we're going to visit a ghost resort. That's next. Welcome back to Eye on the Bay as we continue on the road to nowhere, which has taken us from St. Helena through Angwin, and now we're in the northern end of Pope Valley. And no adjustment of your set is necessary. We've simply also traveled back in time to the waning months of World War II in 1945, when the Bay Area was a much simpler place, the population was much lower, and this was the travel destination of thousands of people who lived in Northern California. This was Etna Springs. Built in 1891, Etna Springs was made for family fun. Lodges, horses, and the oldest golf course west of the Mississippi. A great summer spot for kids like Helen Garangeli Nelson, the owner's daughter. You grew up here.
Yes. It was a family resort, which meant that they got their meals, their lodging, everything was included except golf and horses. This was the social hall, and this is where we had movies. Bingo was played every weeknight. Friday and Saturday nights was square dancing. This is me on a horse. I was in charge of the stable. I took over at the age of 12, complete charge of the stable.
How did the kids survive without video games? Texting.
You know, but nature was here, and that's all they needed.
Helen was there when one Californian made a landmark announcement.
Well, Ronald Reagan announced his candidacy for governor
In 1965.
Yeah. My dad was chairman of the Republican Central Committee, and so he arranged for him to be out here. And it was a very special event.
So this is where Ronald Reagan essentially announced the beginning of his political career.
Exactly.
By the 1970s, Etna was sputtering, but now it's coming back to life. New owners are reviving the resort.
You heard Helen telling you about what this place was. Yeah. Our intention is just bring it back. It was something really special, a family-oriented place in the Napa Valley, and that's all we want to do with it. We've already redone the golf course, replaced the clubhouse, and you really literally take the buildings apart, reuse what you can reuse, and build it back. And so it'll look like it did when it was brand new.
Boy, I mean, I'm frightened enough when I have dry rot in my deck, and you've got a big project here. Right. Well, I wish you all the luck in the world. That's very impressive, and
well, thank you very much.
Hardly wait to see
Appreciate
it.
You should come out and play some golf.
Oh, it will be wonderful for everybody to have a chance to come here and enjoy it the way I did and my family and friends growing up. So it's a very special place.
Now we're heading out of the Springs pushing south in the general direction of Lake Berryessa as we get back onto the road to nowhere. And then if you glance over to the left, you see this really unusual sight. Strung on the barbed wire for what seems like miles are hubcaps. Hubcaps, hubcaps, and more hubcaps. Where are we? Where have we arrived? This, my friend, is Hubcap Ranch. Hubcaps flying off cars is a common occurrence out here on Pope Valley Road, especially before it was paved. Many a spinning cap would roll up here to Lito DeMonte's fence. In the 1930s, Lito started collecting the ejected auto accessories and hanging them up so that owners could come back and retrieve them. Well, people came back, but instead of retrieving hubcaps, they added more. Now there's some 5,000 shiny silvers on display, and in 1987 the kitschy collection went legit. Hubcap Ranch is now California State Landmark number 939. Up next, what do horses, wine, and the Flintstones have in common? This guy. His place is another great find on the road to nowhere, which continues after a break. Welcome back to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney in my 1964 MGB, and we are on the road to nowhere. We began in St. Helena, and then we headed east through the tiny hamlet of Angwin, and then through the historic metropolis of Pope Valley. Well, it's not exactly a metropolis, but we are in the middle of nowhere. In fact, it's such a trip that we have to bed down for the night at a place that is not only a winery, but it's also a ranch, and it's a bed and breakfast. It is in more ways than one. A little house on the prairie. You'll see what I mean. Here we are. Ah, you must be Jim.
I'm Jim.
Hey,
Welcome
Jim.
to Roadtrip.
I'm Brian. Thank you so much. Wow, that is gorgeous. What's life like out here, Jim? It just seems so idyllic.
Oh, it's really great. It's very inner spiritual to live here. There's just a peace.
A lot of people come up here to stay?
A lot of people come to stay to rest their batteries,
Yeah.
recharge them. We get often people here that are Fortune 500 people even, and they can stay in a Ritz. And they've come back here, said, Jim, I come down because of the dusty trail and the road, and this is what I want, nothing else.
You can stay here nestled among the vines. They put those vines to good use, by the way. Look at that view. You're looking right out on the vineyard. And the grapes have produced how many different kinds of wine?
We do 4.
Okay, well, we might as well sample some since we're sitting
I'd be happy
here.
to,
Okay.
and I might even have a tad myself. The Rust Ridge.
Gotta admit, Jim's got a pretty nice place to work, but he wasn't always out here. Believe it or not, Jim's career began in the year 2 million BC.
Oh, hello, Fred. Wait till you hear this, Bob.
Jim, what's the Flintstone connection with you?
The Flintstone connection with me is that I got a job when I was 16 years old with Hanna-Barbera. And I started in the basement and worked up and finished up as assistant director of photography. When I went to work for Hanna-Barbera, the Flintstones was still on storyboard, so I was right with the innovation of it. Every day was just hilarious.
Lighting director for the Flintstones. It's amazing. After working with Fred and Barney, Jim hired on with Little Joe.
So I went to work for Michael Landon. He got a racehorse, and he asked me to train it.
Yeah.
And I trained it, and I liked it, so I decided to be a professional horse trainer. And then it took me to Northern California.
Where Jim and his wife Susan now run this winery and B&B, and he's still into horses. Jim's story really is quintessential California. Hollywood, winemaking, and racehorses. By the way, do you ride yourself?
I ride a little.
Now there's something you don't see every day. Jim keeps this road groomed so he can run his horses right between the vines and into the sunset. Oh, well, this is all just a little too picturesque. And we haven't even reached the destination, Lake Berryessa. So we're going to have to continue tomorrow night. In part 2, we'll indeed reach the lake and meet some people who can't wait for the area to be reborn. Besides having fun on the water, We'll show you a place you can grab a beer and an egg roll beneath thousands of dangling dollars. We'll peek at a town that lies beneath the lake. Plus, where to find a gourmet Italian feast out here in the middle of nowhere. And we'll trace the footsteps of the notorious Zodiac Killer, who had this summer spot shivering with fear 40 years ago, as our Road to Nowhere road trip continues. If you want more information about what you've seen during the course of the show tonight, log on to our website, cbs5.com/Eye on the Bay. From one valley over from Napa Valley, I'm Brian Hackney. Really appreciate you watching. That's Eye on the Bay for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Whoa! Oh my God! I just had this weird dream. This dream that I was traveling through this valley on a country road, and there were snakes, and a player piano, and a bulldog with a bullet hole in its head, and this vision of a horse that was just trotting down through a vineyard. Oh, wait a minute! This wasn't a dream. This was yesterday. That's right. I'm in the middle of exploring one of the Bay Area's roads to nowhere. This is Eye on the Bay, by the way. I'm Brian Hackney, and I'm seeing what there is to see on the windy two-ways that lead you from St. Helena to Lake Berryessa here in Napa County. We're once again making a fun day trip by simply driving the Bay Area's roads less traveled. It's something you can do for an easy weekend adventure. My 1964 MGB is loving the scenery, rolling hills, country barns, and small-town sights. In part one, I visited a ghost resort, a tiny town garage with rattlesnakes as pets. Oh my God. And then, too tired to push further, we pulled into Rust Ridge, a great B&B. Our day ended with a theatrical flourish, watching Jim, the owner, ride a horse right through the vineyard. The sun went down, we slept, and now... This is the breakfast of the bed and breakfast, and we're joined here with Susan, the proprietress. Is that the right way to put it? And how many rooms do you have for people to stay in?
We have 5 rooms, a private bath, and it's all Southwest country living. Yeah. Great food.
This is a world of its own. Susan, we really enjoyed it. This is just great. We really appreciate you having us.
Oh, thank you.
We've almost reached Lake Berryessa, but first we're going to visit a place where those in the know stop on the way to the lake. The Turtle Rock Bar. Oh my God. So this is the famous Turtle Rock.
This is world famous Turtle Rock.
Brian Hackney.
Brian Pete.
Nice to meet you,
Leon.
Pete. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Good heavens, you got to change for a buck? How many of these are there up here?
There's quite a few. Last count there was about 4,865.
Are there actually turtles at Turtle Rock?
Yeah, there's a turtle right here, our mascot down here.
Oh
Soup.
my God, you've got a turtle in a tank.
We have a lot of bikers that come in. We have people using the lake, families. We have winery people. It's just kind of a fun thing, tradition that people do. They come up to the lake and
no kidding,
and stop in. They have an egg roll. We're known for our egg rolls here.
Egg rolls in a bar?
Oh yeah, world famous egg rolls right here. What do you think?
Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right.
You know your egg rolls, my friend.
We've been doing it for about 25 years, so.
25 years?
Oh yeah.
How did it start?
My dad. My father is from Hong Kong, and he's developed a recipe just to try to bring people in.
How many of these in a good weekend will the clientele go through?
I'd say 2,000.
2,000 egg rolls?
Yeah.
Wow.
2,000 egg
That's a
rolls.
lot of, no wonder you're so good at this.
Yeah.
Finally, we reach the end of the road to nowhere. Except it's really not nowhere. It's one of the most fascinating places in the Bay Area. It's the southern tip of Lake Berryessa. And the history here is fascinating. It's got everything. It's got history, it's got development, it's also got this. A local newspaper, the Lake Berryessa News. In fact, they've even got their own newspaper editor, and it's that man. Peter Kilkus, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Brian.
Nice to see you. Peter, a sort of one-man Lake Berryessa encyclopedia, reminded us that the lake is man-made, built in the late 50s, and before there was a lake. This was all a river valley.
This was a stream valley. I wouldn't call it a river, but it was wide enough for the water to come down.
There was a town down here.
The whole town was down there. And can you imagine what that was like when they decided to build the dam? A very big battle occurred.
The town was abandoned and submerged as the water filled. More on that incredible story a little later.
The dam was completed in 1958.
By 1963, the lake was full and in business, a fabulous place for the whole family. The fun lasted about 40 years, and then life at the lake dried up.
This used to be the Captain's Cove restaurant, one of the best restaurants at Lake Berryessa.
It looks like it was just scraped.
It was. I watched it to be demolished. I watched it be put into dumpsters, and I watched it be scraped down to the dirt.
The reason there's no Captain's Cove restaurant, or hardly any businesses at Lake Berryessa at all, is because this land is federal property. Just a couple of years ago, the original vendor contract started to expire, and the battle began. The Bureau of Reclamation on one side, and the local mom and pop businesses on the other. Guess who won? The feds had business owners rebid on the land that they had been using.
Whoever was here bid on their own resort, but the person who owned this resort lost the bid. So he expected to get paid for some of his property, but the government decided that wasn't the case, that they didn't want any of it, and they told everyone here to take it out and grind it to the ground. And as you've seen, it's all ground to the ground. Where there used to be mobile homes, ice cream shop for kids for 30 years, a beautiful restaurant.
Gone.
Gone. Another group of people lost their level of history.
And literally they lost their homes out here. Today, this is a land between eras, but there is hope. A new contractor has won the bid to develop new business.
The big plan is to the company has 6 resorts. Each of the resorts will have its own theme. They're going to have beautiful restaurants out there, floating restaurants. And
it sounds like it's going to be nice.
My problem is I'm so old, I'm not sure it'll be done by the time I can use it.
Well, when is all this supposed to go in?
Well, they have a 10-year plan.
And the best news is, despite rumors to the contrary, Lake Berryessa is open for business now. And believe me, the businesses that have survived would love to see you.
Lake Tahoe is big, cold, and crowded. Donner Lake is small, cold, and crowded. And Lake Berryessa is big, warm, and uncrowded. It's just right. It's perfect, actually.
You know, it's amazing to me. It's only an hour and a half from San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah. And it is just this unspoiled. Still ahead, where to have the most fun and the best food near the lake. Plus, the chilling events of 1969 that tied Lake Berryessa to one of the most notorious criminals in Bay Area history. Welcome back to our Road to Nowhere from Lake Berryessa in eastern Napa County. I'm Brian Hackney. Before we press on for a great meal, we open the history book to one of the Bay Area's darkest criminal chapters that occurred on these shores. And to do that, we travel back to September 27th, 1969.
This guy is a pathological psycho killer. There's no doubt about it.
When the Zodiac struck again.
Early last Saturday evening, Celia Shepard and Brian Hartnell, both in their early 20s, were sitting on this knoll of land overlooking part of Lake Berryessa. They thought they were alone, but there was a third man on this knoll, a man who wore a medieval-style executioner's hood, carried a knife and gun, and intended to use them.
This CBS film footage we dusted off has never been seen since. And this young man, Brian Hartnell, the only survivor. This is an interview from his hospital bed. He and Shepard, 2 students from Pacific Union College in nearby Angwin, were tied up, both stabbed repeatedly. Shepard died 2 days later.
I considered him a robber. I had absolutely no thought that he was anything but that. And when we were at this robbery stage, I didn't consider any real threat to my life or to the girl or anything. I really didn't consider this, but I really wanted to help him. And
did he seem as though he would like your help at all?
No, he didn't, and he didn't even end up taking the money.
Brian will probably be able to leave Queen of the Valley Hospital fairly soon. But where he's going from here is being kept secret in the event that the man who attacked him and killed Cecilia Shepard on Lake Berryessa a week ago Saturday tries again.
But what is chilling is to hear this. The words of a former law enforcement official recounting a call from the killer just minutes after the attack.
7:40 p.m., the subject stated, I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They are about 2 miles above park headquarters in Lake Berryessa, and they are driving a Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. And with that, the officer asked, well, where are you now? And he stated, I did it. And with that, the officer could feel that there was nobody on the line.
Yes, there are dark moments in the region's past, but there's life in the present. And although many businesses have disappeared, a handful of favorites remain, like the Cucina Italiana, a restaurant so beloved that locals have written songs about it.
Cucina, I've just had a meal at Cucina.
Up until 6 years ago, this was a gas station, but then Stefano Gusberti bought it and turned it into an Italian restaurant.
I come from Parma, Italy, and mostly here is fresh pasta, ravioli, gnocchi, traditional Italian dish.
From the cioppino, look at that, to this beautiful gnocchi. And then over here, get a load of the homemade ravioli, and finally, the halibut. I mean, man, this is the real deal. This just looks great. And right next door, I mean, after you finish this amazing meal, then you can get a little taste of history, because you remember that town that was submerged when they built the dam and filled in the lake? There's an entire museum dedicated to the town that was lost, and that's what we're going to visit. But if you don't mind, we're going to take a break, because this is going to take a while, as Eye in the Bay's Road to Nowhere continues. Thanks, Stefano. Welcome back to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney. As we continue on the road to nowhere, we're now on the west shore of Lake Berryessa, and we left you before the break at the Cucina Italiana, this unbelievable restaurant here in the middle of nowhere. The last thing you expect to find is some of the best Italian food, and yet there it was, the cioppino, the gnocchi, the ravioli, the halibut. It was great. And remember, this community is all centered around what used to be just a creek, now is a lake. And in 1958, the dam went in and a tiny town was drowned, as we've already mentioned, the town of Monticello. There are still some people around who used to live in that town, and they're right over there. Although many Lake Berryessa visitors have no idea that there was once a town here, many will never forget people like Carol Fitzpatrick.
My whole family lived there.
Carol realized that not only had the town drowned, but so had the memories. So she opened this museum in honor of Monticello.
I felt it a need to gather everybody's pictures, memories, all their stories together and get them all in one place so that people won't forget there was a town there, and all these memories and all this great history will still stay alive.
The memories come from those who lived there. Folks like Murray Clark. Here he is as a young man living in Monticello, and here he is today. Do you remember Monticello?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, I lived there till I was 26 years old.
What was Monticello like?
Paradise.
Really?
Yeah, it was a great place. There was no law. You could do anything you was big enough to do. And it was just a great place to live and to raise a family.
When did you first hear that they were thinking about building the dam?
Probably in late 40s. There was a lot of opposition to it, and we even hired lobbyists and sent them to Washington, D.C., and what the results turned out to be. There was a deadline when you had to be gone. Wow. They condemned your land and took it.
Do you remember the last time that you walked out of town?
You know, I left there in probably early 1956, and I never come back till after the lake was full.
What did you think the first time you saw it?
You know, I really don't remember. I don't remember. I know what I still think. I still hate the Bureau of Reclamation. And that's wrong. I know it's wrong. But you still have a bitter taste in your mouth. You know, when they were surveying that property up there and up and down the valley, we used to just give them a life of hell. We'd run them off the roads and everything else. Wow. I'm really surprised that somebody didn't get shot. The resentment was that high.
Well, I can imagine. You know, they're going to come in and drown your town.
Yeah.
Ironically, the one piece of Monticello that was saved had already expired in a way. The Monticello Cemetery was physically moved and resettled on safe ground, just down the street from where the museum sits today. And with memories of the town beneath the water, we head out atop the water with the guys from Lake Berryessa Boat Rentals to see how people play on the water these days.
We've got a fleet of jet skis, also a fleet of really nice wakeboard and water ski boats, also really nice deluxe patio boats and party boats. Lake Berryessa, it's one of the biggest and cleanest lakes in California, which makes it great for swimming and skiing, jet skiing, wakeboarding, all that fun stuff. We're lucky there's no snow runoff here, so it's all just rain runoff. So by summertime, by June, July, August, it's in the 70s, warms up to even to the 80s. You can come out on a weekday or a weekend. Weekdays, it's like this. There's nobody else out there on the lake. You got the lake to yourself practically.
Man, it looks like fun. And if you want to have fun in this area as well, easy thing to do. Log on to our website, cbs5.com/Eye in the Bay. We'll have all the details about our trip over the past couple of days. And in the meantime, I'm going to go get wet. Appreciate your watching. See you next time.